The Allen Line Company appreciates all of the dedicated carriers it takes to move loads across the U.S. Stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
New York City's congestion tolling program has faced pushback from the Trump administration. And while we thought it was getting a 6-month reprieve, the U.S. DOT says it is determined to enforce an April 20 deadline to end the program. Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine joins Scott Thompson with the latest. Chris Brady of Commercial Motor Vehicle Consulting says we're already seeing some effects of tariffs on the production and orders of Class 8 trucks. He explains what we're seeing, what we've yet to see, and what we don't know moving forward. From city-level online tools and state-level funding to an idea in Congress to divert money to truck parking and more, Tyson Fisher rejoins the program for another installment of The Parking Zone. And finally, tariff concerns are moving global shipments forward in their delivery schedules. Brent Hutto of Truckstop says load posting volumes continue to increase. Ashley Blackford gets the details. And now, here's Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. We told you earlier this week about how New York City's congestion tolling program was going to remain in place for at least another 6 months after an agreement between the federal government and the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, but not so fast. We might be right back where we started, and here to explain is Tyson Fisher, who's been covering this story for Landline Magazine, and he's got a few more gray hairs to thank for it, I think. How you doing?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, we have another beneficial ownership information type of situation here.
Back and forth.
Here we go.
Back and forth, confusion, everything in between. We'll try to unconfusify whatever we're looking at here. We've been back and forth on this so much over recent months. It's kind of hard to keep track of where we are or where we've been. The latest is that the U.S. DOT has said it will, in fact, enforce an April 20th deadline on New York to end the program, running kind of counter to what we heard just a day before. I guess walk us through what's happening here and what we know right now.
Right. So real quick. So on February 19th is when the DOT told, New York that we're going to revoke your approval for congestion pricing. Right. Lawsuit was immediately filed. And then, the Federal Highway Administration told New York, all right, you get till March 21st and we're ending this. That got extended to April 20th. That brings us to where we are today. So on Friday, April 4th, part of that lawsuit, there was a joint letter to the court where, the federal government and the, Metropolitan Transportation Authority came together and said, hey, we found a schedule for the following, procedures in courts that go through October of this year. And so, part of that letter pretty much said that neither party intends to file a preliminary a motion for preliminary injunction. So through the court, neither party is going to try to stop congestion pricing. And so, a lot of people thought, interpreted this to mean that congestion pricing is going to continue through at least October while litigation plays out, right? And so, the end of October is when hopefully around then a decision on summary judgment will be reached by the court. Essentially, the court order deciding what's going to happen, with this. Yeah. And so so everyone kind of thought what this means is that, all right, congestion pricing will just continue until we get that, that official court order.
But maybe not.
But maybe not.
Not now, at least.
And then, just very recently, the U.S. DOT on social media pretty much put all that to rest. Put cold water on the idea last through October, and then in so many words,
right.
It basically said they didn't mince words. I'll tell you that, but it basically said, that's not at all true,
right.
And that we are going. The U.S. DOT is going to move forward with this April 20th deadline. Basically, what the DOT said is we agreed on a judicial court timeline. We are basically, they're pretty much saying like in the courtroom, we're not going to try to stop, congestion pricing. Yeah, that might be true. outside of the courtroom, that's a completely different story. And that's pretty much what they're signaling, which is outside of the courtroom, we can unilaterally do whatever we need to do to stop this from happening.
That's the question I have, too, and I'm not clear on this either. So April 20th comes. The USDOT has said they are going to essentially force an end to the congestion tolling program on that day. New York has said, we will not abide by that order. We're going to continue doing it. So we've got a standoff.
Yep.
What does that look like on April 20th if New York continues to defy this order?
Yeah, so what we don't know is how will the DOT force from this happening.
Yeah.
Now, within that joint letter to the court that caused so much confusion, one thing that the Metropolitan Transportation Authority suggested was that the federal government would do what it has been doing in other areas of policy, which is withhold federal funding to force compliance on their policies. So that could be one avenue by which the DOT is like, hey, if you don't want to stop congestion pricing, you get no money from us until you do. So if something like that happens, what will more than likely happen is that the New York transportation officials in the case will file a preliminary injunction of relief saying you need to stop this from happening while litigation plays out. So that's kind of what I'm thinking is going to happen. That's my prediction, is that we don't know what the DOT is how they're going to stop congestion pricing, but however they do it, the New York plaintiffs in the case is going to absolutely ask the court to stop this from happening while we move through this case.
Yeah, so it's most likely it's going to continue on through the courts. Attorneys are making a lot of money these days with all of these court cases that are going on. And something we've talked about before, and I want to kind of underline and put this in bold and italicize it, whatever. Whatever happens here in New York City with this congestion tolling program, other cities are taking notice. There are other cities out there who are considering this for themselves. And what happens here will have implications on other places throughout the United States.
Yeah, I know Los Angeles, for one, has strong interest in similar congestion pricing. I know, last year the Boston City Council held like a quick little hearing about, just entertaining the idea. Yeah, if this works out in New York City, other cities may follow suit. And New York City is claiming that it's so far, their claim is it's working pretty well. Congestion is down. They're saying it has not affected foot traffic or businesses, and so they're trying to present a strong case. Of course, the counter argument is that those who have to commute to work are getting hit hard. So I think there are
truck drivers who have no choice,
and the truck drivers
over the
for
routes.
sure, absolutely. And so I think there's some merits to both causes here. But the question is this constitutional? What either are doing. They're both saying that what the other is trying to do is not constitutional. So what the federal government is trying to do is trying to force, the New York to do their bidding before the court order. That's what we're going to find out. So April 20th is going to get interesting is how I'll phrase that. So until then, congestion pricing stands until April 20th.
As if we haven't had enough interesting things happen already. We'll keep that circled on the calendar, and we'll see how the attorneys enjoy. The attorneys, again, I think are having a great old time these days with all these cases that are going around. Tyson, we appreciate it, and we'll talk to you again later on in the show.
Always a pleasure.
That was Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Scott. Congratulations to Kevin Kokmick of Litchfield, Minnesota. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 34 years of safe, accident-free driving. That's the equivalent of a car driver going 255 years without causing a single accident. The OOIDA Safe Driving Award program is sponsored by Shell Rotella. Next, Chris Brady of the Commercial Motor Vehicle Consulting discusses the effects of tariffs on the production and orders of Class 8 trucks, and Tyson Fisher rejoins the program for another installment of The Parking Zone. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
Dispatch, I picked up that load of steel, so I'm ready to roll.
Sounds good. Remember, we're getting paid by weight, so make sure to use a cat scale.
I wouldn't weigh anywhere else.
Forget misaccuracy when you're truck on a cat scale. Penske is the trusted source for quality used trucks. Whether you search our website, call our sales staff, or bid at our online auction, you are sure to find the right used truck for your business. Visit PenskeUsedTrucks.com to view our inventory and learn more.
With rising costs affecting everyone, switching to a genuine Vibertech TVD viscous damper can help you avoid expensive repairs and downtime. Save money and keep your truck running smooth with Vibertech TVD. Recommended replacement at 500,000 miles or 15,000 hours.
Landline Now, welcome back. The Trump administration's tariffs are poised to impact any number of industries, and one we're watching closely is the effect on heavy truck production and orders and what that means for the greater trucking economy. Joining us to discuss is someone who will be watching closely as well. Chris Brady is the principal of Commercial Motor Vehicle Consulting, and he joins us on the line now. Chris, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to get into all the latest here in just a moment, and we've got plenty to talk about. But before that, can you just talk a little bit about what you do at Commercial Motor Vehicle Consulting?
Sure. We do marketing analysis of the commercial vehicle environment, and that's from analysis of fleets and taking that, what demand will be, and production. So we look at what's the environment for the fleets, what's their investment spending likely to be, and how that's going to affect truck production. I've been doing this analysis for over 35 years.
Right. So you're busy, I think these days, it's safe to say. And there is so much going on. I kind of want to take this piece by piece and kind of talk about what we do know, maybe what we don't know, and sort of the wild cards that are out there right now with all of this. I suppose we can start by talking about where we were, though, with regard to, I think, Class 8 production and orders leading up to all this tariff news, a health check of sorts. Taking tariffs out of the equation altogether, what track were we on?
So we were on a lower track for sales in 2025 on Class 8 compared to 2024. The reason for that was in 2024, fleets and line haul applications rationalized capacity. So they actually shrunk their fleet sizes and bring it in balance with the freight environment. So what that does is it reduces replacement demand volumes for the fleet. So, for example, if ABC Fleet had 100 trucks and now they're down to 90, there's less trucks depreciating, which they will replace in 2025 compared to 2024. So we were expecting lower sales in 25 compared to 24. Now, that excludes what everyone expected in the second half of the year is the beginning of a pre-buy regarding Class 8 trucks due to 2027 vehicle emission standards. Some of the fleets were likely to pull forward their replacement demand from 2027 and put it into 2025 and 2026. So on the demand side, we expected lower sales, but we might get the artificial stimulus in the second half of 2025 related to a pre-buy.
So that's where we were, and I think, as you kind of alluded to there, all in reaction to the depressed freight market that we've seen over recent years, also keeping in mind that people were hopeful that things were going to pick up as well.
Yeah, everyone talks about the depressed freight market. Really what happened is it was growing, and then it just kind of slowed down significantly. And on the industrial production side, it was kind of like flat. And we had still some growth in consumer spending. So there was slight growth in freight. But what happened in 2023 into 2024 kind of was the backlog for truck makers became really expansive. So when you put an order in and you got a delivery of a truck, might be 9 months to a year out. So the fleets were looking at what their past freight growth was, anticipating what they needed, and they actually then ended up overbuying as the freight market slowed significantly, and they kept on taking on trucks.
Right.
So that's what really depressed the earnings for carriers and the environment for fleets, is they kind of overbought in anticipating that the freight environment would stay relatively strong, and it slowed down significantly.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's get into the tariffs here. And again, I think we can take this kind of piece by piece. And let's look at what's happening right now as we speak right now today, with the effects that you're seeing, the immediate impact, I think, on orders and production and everything else you're seeing right now as we speak today.
So I think the tariffs right now on the general economy, it just started. It's having a marginal impact on the economy. These tariffs won't really have an impact upon the freight market until like 6 months out, because it takes time for it to work through the economy. What it's doing for orders right now is the fleets, as I was saying before, they kind of look at the past 6 months of the freight environment, which we just were talking about. It's relatively flat. And now you put in uncertainty is what is all these tariffs going to mean for the freight environment in the future, 6 months from now. So that uncertainty has caused carriers to be very conservative of ordering trucks. And truck orders right now are relatively weak.
Yeah, the uncertainty is the real wild card here, isn't it? I mean, in particular, the tariffs right now, I think we're not fully seeing the impact of it, but it's the uncertainty about what it's going to look like moving forward that's really kind of spooking people, isn't it?
Yeah, at the moment, the impact on truck orders regarding tariffs is the uncertainty. 6 to 9 months from now, when the tariffs begin to hit the economy, then they'll see the drag of what tariffs have on the economy.
Yeah. Which tariffs in particular are causing the most concern out there right now? Because we have tariffs across the board. Some are going to affect certain sectors and industries, and others will affect others. For what we're talking about today, which tariffs in particular are causing the most concern?
Yeah, I would look at it in general. The tariffs in general are for fleets on their freight environment, since trucks haul everything from fruits and vegetables to steel products to liquid bulk. They haul everything. So on the tariff situation, it impacts the economy on the demand side in the sense that it increases prices for consumers. So an increase in prices, they have less money to spend on other items. For businesses, it increases their input costs, and if they can't pass it along fully to the consumer, it squeezes their profit margins, and they'll cut back on investment spending. So that's where it hits the demand side of the economy. On the supply side of the economy, and it doesn't get as much attention, is retaliatory tariffs are going to be a drag on U.S. exports. And the U.S. is the second largest exporter in the world next to China. So it's not like we don't play a big role in exports. It's just as a share of our economy, exports is a much smaller share of our economy than China and other countries. So our most productive industries are generally global industries. And with tariffs going up on them to export to those countries, we'll see a slowdown in our production related to exports. So it's going to impact not only the demand of consumer spending and business investment spending, it's going to impact our output related to exports. So the tariff's going to have a significant drag upon the U.S. economy. Again, it's just starting. It won't probably be for 6 to 9 months where we start to see the effect.
Yeah, you're painting, and I've seen this picture painted by many other people out there right now, economists and experts and everybody in between. You're painting a very concerning picture about what this could look like, especially 6 months from now, 9 months from now. Again, there's so much uncertainty, and I think that is the wild card here that everybody's worried about because they don't know how to plan ahead based on what we know and don't know at this point. You talk to people every day that are in the industry and are invested in the industry in many ways. What are they telling you? How concerned are they? What, reaction do they have to everything that we're seeing out there?
They're very concerned of what the impact. Again, as you mentioned, uncertainty. It's just how much of a drag is tariffs going to have upon the economy and what it means for them. And then for a business, what it means for their input cost. And on the Class 8 side, you're seeing uncertainty regarding orders, the freight market's soft, and then there's excessive inventories at dealerships. So they were probably expecting a second half of the year bump in sales related to a pre-buy. Mm-hmm. And if the Trump administration reduces the or eliminates the 2027 vehicle emission standards, you're not going to see that bump related to a pre-buy because there's no reason to pre-buy if they eliminate the 2027 vehicle emissions. So the dealers might expect a bump in the second half of the year. If that doesn't occur, this inventory hang will impact production through the second half of the year now.
And let's talk real quick here about the cost of a truck as well. I imagine that prices are going to increase. There may not be a concrete answer here, but do we have a sense of what the effect might be on that moving forward?
That's tough to say right now because of the tariffs on different countries, how much is imported, which items are there, what's the cost of that item compared to the total truck. So it's very difficult to say right now what the price will be. And it also, when vehicle demand is strong, the truck makers have better pricing power to pass along increases to customers. When the truck sales are soft, they don't have as much pricing power to pass along higher input costs to customers. So how much will customers see higher prices will also depend upon how strong truck sales are.
Yeah, and the used truck market as well. I imagine we're going to see some kind of trickle-down effects there as well. If things get a little hairy and expensive in the new truck market, used truck market would have, you'd see some changes there too, right?
Then both people, very few fleets can go from purchasing new to purchasing used.
Sure.
And the reason for that is a fleet that's running 100,000 miles a year, and they have a trade cycle of like 4 to 5 years. So their whole business is run the truck hard, right before a warranty, sell it into the used truck market, get maximum value for the vehicle, and keep their maintenance expenses relatively low. If they went out and bought a used truck that now has, let's say, 400,000 to 500,000 miles, and they're running that at their typical 100,000 miles a year, they're going to get maintenance expenses that they've never seen previously because of the past depreciation on the truck from the previous owner. So people who buy new generally don't switch to used when in this situation.
Sure.
They'll continue to buy new. They might not buy as much, and that's where it hurts demand, and they might extend their trade cycle slightly, but that's more the situation than switching from new to used.
We've got about a minute left, Chris. I did want to ask you, as we talk about all of this and the uncertainty and everything that's going on out there, advice. What advice do you have for people who are perhaps concerned today, wondering what they should do next? What would you say to them?
You got to look at your costs like anything else and then see how things come in, but have a plan so when they do, you know how to react. So number one is look at your costs, pay close attention to your customers and what's going on with them in relationship to this tariffs and the trade war and how that might affect them. But, you're just going to have to react. It's not like you have any say. I mean, you can look at your supply chain, but changing supply chains takes time. So you're probably going to feel the effects of the tariffs before you can dramatically change your supply chain.
Chris, we appreciate it. Obviously, an interesting time that we're living through right now. Real quick before we let you go, where can people go for more information?
You can go to our website, cmvinfo.com. Name of our company is Commercial Motor Vehicle Consulting. I'm a trained economist, so I do have expertise kind of looking at the current situation.
Sure.
And then I take that, what's going on with the economy and how that affects the commercial vehicle industry. And we have a weekly newsletter which people can get on our website, sign up for, and I can send it to them for an evaluation period. And we have other newsletters regarding the aftermarket, and we forecast truck sales and bus sales and do anything regarding the commercial vehicle industry.
There you go. People check it out. Chris Brady, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
We'll step out for a quick break, but hang tight. There's more Landline Now coming right up.
At Truck Stop, we've built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truck Stop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone's FD694 drive tire for long haul and regional applications now delivers 126,000 more removal miles than the Yokohama TY517 MC2. Contact your Firestone commercial dealer to learn more.
A blank space on many maps with the distance between parking spaces seemingly as great as infinity. It is the boundary that separates safety and security from the dangers of the road, the space between electronic signs and a place in which to rest. It is not a dimension of the imagination, but instead the reality faced by truck drivers every single day. It is a place we call the parking zone. Here are your guides for this journey into parking news good and bad, Scott Thompson and Tyson Fisher.
Thanks, Mark. Scott here, joined by the truck parking guru, Tyson Fisher.
Hey, that's me. Yeah.
Hey, that's you. Welcome.
Hey,
Always glad to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're going to start today, I think, kind of on the micro level of the truck parking crisis with what cities are doing to address the problem. We usually start on the kind of the federal scale. We're going to go in reverse order this time. And for Charlotte, North Carolina, this is coming in the form of an online tool. Tell us what they're trying to do there, or what they are doing there, I guess.
Yeah, so we've talked about truck parking apps a lot on this show. And the city of Charlotte, North Carolina is getting to the truck parking app game. So basically, what happened was that Charlotte has fielded complaints about truck parking from both residents and truck drivers. From the truck driver side, apparently there's a major problem with predatory towing there, and there's issues with parking. You combine those two, you got an issue, right? So addressing this issue, the city created a parking app and website that basically informs truckers of where parking is available and what the parking regulations are. So it's kind of familiarize yourself with the regulations, find some parking, try to make it easier for truckers to find parking there, which, by the way, it's a $100 fine for illegal parking in Charlotte. So it's not cheap to park illegally there.
Yeah.
So, of most interest to the truck drivers is the parking availability map, which relies on owners of the parking spots to submit data. So I checked this out before this morning to kind of see what's going on with that. And there was a whopping total of 5 locations that you can park in Charlotte, North Carolina, per this app.
It doesn't seem like a lot.
It is not a lot. It is not a lot.
Yeah.
That's across the entire metro area, and all 5 of those are owned by the same 2 companies that are in the business of paid parking. So these are paid parking spots on the Charlotte, North Carolina app.
I want to make sure I understand, too.
Yes.
You said 5 parking facilities.
Facilities, right.
That's basically what the tool is giving right now.
Right now.
A total of 5.
A total of 5 facilities, and they're all paid parking is what they are. So, again, this is based on user-submitted data, and so maybe over time we'll see some more, but right now it's not looking great. It doesn't even mention the pilot travel center, which there is a pilot in Charlotte proper. It doesn't even mention that. And so it's not great right now. So the only available legal parking is going to cost you $15 a day if that's what you want to do.
Well, the idea here sounds great. I mean, the idea of giving people information about where they can go, where there are spots available, is a great idea. But then when you start factoring in the fact that there's only 5 and the fact that they're only paid parking facilities, that is not going to be received very well, I wouldn't think.
No, I do applaud the city for the effort.
Yeah,
sure. I'm just not impressed with the execution so far. Again, this could be refined over time. We'll see what happens. But I did go to a popular truck parking app to see what's going on in Charlotte over there, and I found more spaces, but they were all $10 more expensive. So, I mean, kind of do what you will with that info.
Yeah.
So there's different options. So, again, a valiant attempt by Charlotte to address a problem, and then hopefully, again, over time, it'll be better.
Yeah, we'll give them some credit for now. We'll check back maybe in a few months. Maybe they'll refine it and make this a little bit better and more helpful for people out there, which is the goal. And hopefully they will understand that when they're coming up with changes to this. Let's move to New York City, a city that has a big truck parking problem, a nightmare, I think we could probably call it there. They've got a tool as well that is focused on overnight parking compliance. What does this one look like? Sounds like maybe similar to what we're seeing in Charlotte?
Yeah, very similar.
Okay.
New York City, the City Department of Transportation launched an overnight truck parking pilot program. That's what's going on. This is in industrial business zones in 3 boroughs. So the Flatlands Fairfield zone in Brooklyn, the Hunts Point zone in the Bronx, and then there's another zone in Queens. So the good news is that the pilot program will add 45 truck parking spaces in the area. So that's good. The bad news is that even though these are city-owned parking spaces, the city is charging truckers to park there. So this is a paid parking app, city-owned paid parking app, basically. So, but here's how it works. So there will be signs at certain truck parking spots informing drivers that it is a metered spot, right? So from there, truckers can pay $10 per every 8 hours at that spot with their Park NYC app. So, which means if you're going to do your 10-hour reset at this spot, you got to fork over $20 because you have to pay for basically 2 8-hour chunks, right? So that's how that works. But already New Yorkers are complaining about this program because apparently it's not being used in areas that have the most serious truck parking problems. So there's already some backlash from the residents and businesses in the area. So the other problem is this may actually be your best bet to find parking in these areas.
Say that, yeah.
Because I also checked several truck parking apps to see what the situation is, and specifically these boroughs.
It just is nothing there.
Literally nothing.
Literally nothing.
No one is offering truck parking through these apps, and so I think I did find one that was charging $50 a day to park. So again, this is probably going to be your best bet.
Yeah, and I was just thinking that too when you talk New York City and you talk about the lack of available space. It kind of makes sense that this would be something that you might need to pay for. Again, $10 for every 8-hour session there in New York City. I'll give New York City, I don't know how much credit, 10% credit, I don't know, for doing this at least. Understanding that, a lot of these truck drivers are not parking on the street because they want to. They just have nowhere else to go. So we'll see how that situation plays out as well. We'll check back on both of those cities. Let's move on here and kind of scale up to the state level. We've got Ohio. They're working or have, I guess, worked truck parking into their transportation budget. And at least for me, it's encouraging to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Governor Mike DeWine just signed a 2-year, $11 billion transportation budget, which includes a provision that addresses truck parking. Specifically, the state has allocated $150 million for a truck parking study. But before you roll your eyes, it's more than just a truck parking study. It also builds more truck parking spaces. So $150 million is kind of a lot for a parking study, right?
Right, yeah.
So the study, it includes a study and then more parking based on where the study indicates parking is needed. So it's kind of just rolling. It's like a 1-2 punch. It's taking a more comprehensive approach to this. So that being said, I think this is the right approach to do it. Funding just a study doesn't indicate that the state is going to do anything meaningful. We see it all the time. They'll do a study, and then we don't see anything for several more years.
Right.
But funding a study and more parking in the same disbursement at the same time, it tells me you're serious about pouring some concrete where it's needed. So I'm really glad to see this. Ohio's been very proactive in addressing truck parking lately, in addition to expanding parking at existing rest areas. They also have a rest area modernization program that's currently happening that includes some additional truck parking at some rest areas. And they are currently trying to repurpose a closed rest area on I-80 and to turn that into a truck parking only facility with 38 spaces. So Ohio, it looks like they're getting it done.
They're putting their money where their mouth is, and that $150 million also tells me that they kind of already know what the study's going to tell them.
Sure,
it's going to tell them that they need more truck parking, so they're already taking the steps to kind of make that happen. But very encouraging what we're seeing there in Ohio. And other states could take notice. And to that point, we do have a few states looking at bills right now that would address some of the truck parking problems in those particular states. I know Keith Goebel, your colleague, colleague, covered it for Landline.media recently. We're not going to get to all these here, but of the 4 states that he mentioned in this article, what kind of stands out to you as being a highlight?
I think my favorite one of these is in Pennsylvania. So in Pennsylvania, there's a bill that would give businesses a tax credit for building additional truck parking spaces. So specifically, a $5,000 annual tax credit for each publicly available free truck parking space in certain areas.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great idea. There's no incentive for businesses to allow truck parking, and what Representative Kerry Binninghoff is doing is that he's trying to create that incentive. A very novel approach. I like it. Hopefully it can get out the door, and then other states can see that and be like, you know what? Not a bad idea.
Well, and businesses are going to like that too. I mean, that's a big shining...
Right.
Give me that tax credit, right. And at the same time, I'm, helping with this crisis that they're maybe aware of, maybe they're not aware of it. But that would certainly add up pretty quickly, too, if you're talking
absolutely
10, 15, 20 parking spaces
sure.
over, a big area. That makes a difference there. Any other states there? I know New York, Texas, New Jersey also. Anything kind of pop out to you?
Yeah, New York is being New York. And that's...
enough said, yeah.
But their bills is just going to increase the fines to like up to $1,000. So,
gotcha.
Yeah, it's what you would expect.
Let's scale up to the federal level now. We've got a few champions in Congress for truck parking. One of them is Senator Cynthia Lummis, and she used a recent committee hearing to bring up the issue. We talked about it here on the show a little bit, but she essentially tied truck parking funding to electric vehicle charging infrastructure or the funding for that. And she's got an idea here, I think, that might have some legs as we continue this conversation.
Yeah, I was kind of looking into this. So, Cynthia Lummis, her idea, so there's an issue with funding for truck parking, which although the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act addresses this issue, she's trying to take a more novel approach. So, background, the bipartisan infrastructure law passed during the Biden administration included $7.5 billion for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. But last month, Lummis introduced what's called the Highway Funding Flexibility Act, which allows states to tap into that several billion dollars for charging infrastructure, but instead of using it for charging infrastructure, use it for roads, bridges, wildlife crossings, and truck parking. So I think it's a pretty novel approach. This would absolutely require an act of Congress because she's trying to reallocate money that Congress has already allocated. But again, she has that bill to kind of get the ball rolling on that. I like it. It's a novel approach. The issue I take with this is that it's not dedicated funding for truck parking. As I said, it could be used for roads and bridges. So let's say this gets passed and that funding is available. We're going to kind of see ourselves where we are already at, which is states are going to have to prioritize their projects to tap into that money. Most states don't.
And truck parking just keeps kind of going down that list when they do that.
I'm not sure that billions of dollars in charging infrastructure funding will be used for truck parking. So, but maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. But I do like the novel approach to this whole thing.
Right. And there would have to be specific language to say that this amount of money has to go toward truck parking, kind of like what we see with the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act in the House.
Sure.
It would be that idea, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to that, Cynthia Lummis, she actually was the one that introduced the Truck Parking Safety Improvement Act in the Senate in the last Congress. And so I think she understands the dynamics of this whole issue with funding and truck parking. And so, it would be nice to see that specific allocation for truck parking. But in the meantime, you have these billions of dollars available. Maybe that would incentivize states to kind of boost truck parking up the ladder when it comes to their projects. But either way, any additional funding available for truck parking is welcome. And so I kind of like to see this get out the door as well.
Yeah, it'd be nice, again, if there were a dollar amount attached to this idea. Again, just an idea right now, but something that she brought up, and she's thinking about it, so we'll see how that kind of plays out here over time. But again, encouraging that we've got people in Congress who understand this. Tyson, you understand it as well. We understand it better every time you stop by, and we appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Our thanks to Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine. We've got more Landline now right after this short commercial break.
Protect your diesel engine with Howe's Diesel Defender. Restore vital lubricity, eliminate injector deposits, and boost fuel economy by 5% or more. Power, performance, protection, all in one. Howe's Diesel Defender, available now.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now, welcome back. If you're hauling freight and running your own business, you need to keep track of some basic facts and figures that can determine whether you succeed or fail. And that includes finding the freight and how much money you can make hauling it. Today, Landline Now's Ashley Blackbird will bring us some of that information and get some insight as to why things are happening with the folks from truckstop.com. Here's Ashley now with a report.
Thanks, Mark, and hello to Brent Hutto with Truck Stop. Brent, I absolutely love the song you chose today. Such a classic.
Oh, my gosh. Lenny Kravitz is just fantastic. The song is Fly Away. Go listen to it right now. It's one of my favorite songs when it came out in '98. But I got to see Lenny Kravitz back when he first launched. I saw him when I was a junior at Auburn in 1987, and he was fantastic. So that's when he launched his career, but it's really, really good. But I chose Fly Away because load posting volumes continue to increase, and they look like they may fly away, if you know what I'm saying. But a lot of this is, I say that just in jest, but really a lot of this is like a lot of the manufacturers or people that import and sell things are concerned about tariffs, so they are moving more goods right now, and it has increased in the marketplace. Now, that doesn't mean they won't stay pretty positive, because this tariff thing is not a short-term thing. It's going to continue to be moving throughout the system. You're already seeing countries now kind of wanting to negotiate with America. And if you dig way into the tariffs, then you'll understand why we're doing them. So I encourage anyone to do that. Please be informed. But the marketplace is continues to do well for truckers. The market demand index, sort of the pressure point in spot market freight, last year, so in 2024, at this time, it was 71. Last week, it was 113. So it's dramatically above where it is. That just tells you there's a lot more freight in the marketplace, which is really good for the owner-operator and the small fleet player that plays in the spot market, because when there's more freight, the trucks don't change very much, very little at all. Usually get higher rates, and we've seen that. Higher rates continue to increase. But to kind of give you an idea of the load posting volumes, because I like to look at the numbers, Ash, you know how I feel about the numbers. I always tell every trucker, know your numbers, watch the numbers. If you know your numbers, you can negotiate and get better rates. The actual load availability inside of the spot market is 31% above where it normally is. And I usually say 5-year average, but that sounds very economic. Where it normally is 31% above. Now, that's a lot. That's a tremendous amount. There's about 150 million loads in America that move in the spot market. So when it's 31% above, that means rates are going to go up. And speaking of rates did increase 3 cents from week to week. They went from $2.47. Remember, this is with fuel, and this is the broker posted. This is the posted rate. This isn't your final rate. Please negotiate. I'll say it every single time. If I ever fail to say it, Ashley, you got to hold me to it. Negotiate. All right, so 247 to 250, so it went up 3 cents. But if you look at what it's done in the last many weeks, it's gone up about 10 cents total. Van increased 5 cents week to week and went from $1.89 to $1.94. Flatbed increased 6 cents. Flatbed's up 21 cents in the last 6 weeks. But these are all per mile. So it went up from 256 to 259. Refrigerated increased 8 cents, which is really good for refrigerated, and 211 to 219. And 10 cents in 2 weeks. Fuel kind of stayed where it's been, about 43 cents. It's kind of been stable, 42, 43 cents of fuel surcharge. So that's kind of good. When fuel's stable, when it's predictable, when things are predictable, you can create better profitability. Remember that phrase. If you're an owner-operator, predictability means profitability. That's a certainty about our marketplace. And the overall contract marketplace, the outbound tender reject index, which is the measurement of contract freight that's not being moved under the contract rate that it was quoted at, continues to stay above 5%. 2 weeks ago, it was almost 7%. Last week, it's at 6.1%. So the point being is that it just continues to stay above 5%, which means we'll have more freight in the spot market, which is a really, really good thing. The outbound tender reject index year over year is 40% higher. Now, that's meaningful, 40%. So that means they're going to have more and more freight in the spot market, which means you can negotiate for better rates because there's more pressure on the broker and sometimes the shipper if you're going to use them to be able to move that freight, because there's more freight than there's trucks, and so therefore you'll have an advantage. And where there's an advantage, you need to use your leverage very politely and kindly with good honor, but negotiate those rates across the board.
All right. Looking at the top regions and lanes from last week, what are some of the standouts?
Yeah, well, some of the standouts to me are the Mountain Central region and the Southeast region. They were up over 8%, both of them. The Midwest was up about 4.5%. Everybody else was just kind of nominal on load available in the market. Rates, you had the same thing. Mountain Central was up almost 5% total. These are just total rates. And look in specific lanes. Always look in specific lanes, because you can find really good freight when you know where to look as far as in certain lanes. But just in general, Mountain Central was the big standout there when you look at rates. When you look at some of the marketplaces, and I always like to look at specific marketplaces, for van, L.A. to Denver was the number one increase of 20% from 236 to 284. That's really good. And again, Texas, and then there was a Memphis to Atlanta that increased 11% from 251 to 279, which is still really healthy. From Atlanta to Memphis, that's still a good rate. And then flatbed was Chicago to Denver. Again, moving from somewhere into the Denver marketplace, went up 19%, 289 to 345. Again, Texas were the next three in flatbed lanes. Going out of Texas to places like Salt Lake, Omaha, and Kansas City. So, it continue to look really, really diligently. And again, on the refrigerated lanes, Texas, and again, Texas. All four big increases were out of Houston, anywhere from 30% to 84%. So it's really, really important that you understand the lanes, that you understand the data, because when you can do that, you can find that freight that pays more for you. And really, that's what we all want at Truck Stop, and that's what everybody wants at OIDA, is for the owner-operated small fleet person to get the best rate they can in that lane.
What are some important industry points that owner-operators should be aware of?
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. So some of the things that I always like to pull a few things out. So we just got back from Mid-America, and I was on stage with some good friends of mine at American Truck Business Services. They do a lot of the back office tax filings, profit and loss statements for about 20,000 owner-operators, and the Amen family runs them. They do a good job helping out. Well, last year, owner-operators, independent drivers, earned a little bit more than 25, but they also drove more. So they drove more miles, and they made more money. But I thought one thing I thought was interesting was some of the statistics were for drivers that didn't work the whole year, because owner-operators can work 10 months a year, 9 months a year, just depends. They can run their own business. But for the drivers that work the whole year, the numbers rises. Their average take was about $86,000, so it's up $1,000 for the year. But what's interesting is the figure of the top 10% of the drivers whose taxes and finances were processed by HUBS was $215,000. So that's the top 10%. So there's that when you really focus on the numbers, Ashley, you can make a very good living hauling freight in America in the spot market. So I just kind of continue to go back to that. Also, the last thing is this tariffs. A lot of people are concerned about tariffs. I talked about that a little bit when we opened up. Please go and look at all of the things that are being talked about on tariffs, and look on positive sides, look on negative sides. But when you look at what it's going to help, the tariffs are going to end up helping the middle class, because we're going to bring manufacturing back to the United States. But what's interesting is the tariffs are predicted. This is by the National Retail Federation, which is all the big players out there, the Walmarts, the Targets, the Levi's, the Pepsi's, all these giant players out there. So they said it won't be a drag on consumer spending, which is really good for the spot market, because that means more freight will be in the spot market. But they expect the National Retail Federation, these are all, they do the measurement for all these big consumer sellers out there, predict that retail sales in 2025 will grow between 2.5% and 3.5% over the next year. So that's super. Well, actually, the prediction was that it would grow to almost 3.6% in 2025. So that's really a unique thing that it's going to end up going up year to year, because the thought on the tariffs was it might drag down consumer spending because of concern, but it doesn't seem like it's going to play out.
All right, Brent, thank you so much.
You're so welcome, Ashley. Thanks for having me around. Keep on trucking.
That was Brent Hutto with Truck Stop. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Ashley. That's our program for today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife.
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome,
and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us! Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.